Diva's Journey, From Heartbreak to Healing Part 1, The Arrival. The bus rumbled to a stop on a dusty street corner, and Diva pressed her forehead against the cool window. Through the smudged glass she could see her cousin Ziza waiting, waving enthusiastically despite the late hour. At 17, Diva felt ancient, hollowed out by grief, carrying nothing but a worn suitcase and the weight of everything she'd lost. Diva. Ziza's arms wrapped around her before she'd even fully stepped off the bus. Welcome, cousin. You're home now. Home. The word felt foreign. Home had been her mother's laugh, her father's strong hands, her little brother's endless questions. Home had been demolished 6 months ago when the accident took them all, leaving Diva the sole survivor with nothing but survivor's guilt and nightmares that wouldn't fade. Ziza's apartment was small but warm, tucked above a laundromat in the bustling immigrant neighborhood. The scent of unfamiliar spices wafted through the halls, and Diva could hear multiple languages bleeding through thin walls: Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, all mixing into an urban symphony. It's not much, Ziza said, pushing open the door to reveal a cramped 2-bedroom space. But the second room is yours. I cleared out all my junk. Diva managed a weak smile. Ziza was only 5 years older but seemed to belong to a different species. Confident, settled, moving through life with purpose, while Diva felt like a ghost haunting her own existence. That first night, Diva lay awake on unfamiliar sheets, listening to the city breathe. Car horns. Distant sirens. Someone laughing on the street below. She clutched her mother's scarf, the only thing she'd grabbed from the wreckage of her old life, and let silent tears soak into the pillow. Part 2, Mr. Chen's Restaurant. You need structure, Ziza announced over breakfast 3 days later. And I need help at work. Ziza worked at Golden Phoenix, a hole-in-the-wall Chinese restaurant owned by Mr. Chen, a 72-year-old man who ran his kitchen like a benevolent dictator. The restaurant had been a neighborhood fixture for 40 years, serving comfort food to 3 generations of families. Diva started the next Monday. Mr. Chin took one look at her, this broken girl with haunted eyes, and simply nodded. You wash dishes. We see how you do. The work was mindless, which was exactly what Diva needed. Her hands in scalding water, scrubbing plates clean, letting the repetitive motion numb her thoughts. She arrived early and stayed late, grateful for any excuse not to sit alone with her memories. Mr. Chin rarely spoke, but he watched. He noticed when Diva skipped lunch, silently sliding a plate of fried rice in front of her. He noticed when her hands trembled, giving her tasks that required focus but not interaction. He noticed everything, this quiet old man who'd survived his own tragedies. One evening, 3 weeks into her employment, the dinner rush hit like a tsunami. Orders poured in, the kitchen descended into controlled chaos, and Diva found herself pulled from dish duty to help plate orders. Her hands moved automatically, garnishing dishes, wiping plate edges clean, arranging everything with unexpected artistry. Mr. Chin paused mid-woke flip, watching her work. Something shifted in his expression. After closing, he approached her station. You have good hands, he said simply. Careful hands. Tomorrow you will learn to cook. Diva looked up, startled. I don't know how. Good. Then I will teach you the right way, not bad habits. He turned to leave, then paused. Your cousin, she told me about your family. About the accident. His weathered face softened. The kitchen, it saved me too after I lost my wife. The fire, the knife, the ingredients, they ask nothing from you except attention. Sometimes, this is the only peace we can find. That night, Diva cried for the first time since arriving, not silent tears of grief but loud, gasping sobs of release. Ziza held her through it all, rocking her like a child, whispering reassurances into her hair. Part 3, Learning to Live Again. The months blurred together in a haze of knife skills and wok techniques. Mr. Chin proved to be a demanding but patient teacher, correcting Diva's grip on the cleaver, showing her how to judge oil temperature by sight, teaching her the alchemy of transforming simple ingredients into something that nourished both body and soul. Cooking is like life, he'd say, demonstrating how to fold dumplings. You must be present. You must pay attention. If your mind wanders, the food knows. It always knows. Slowly, imperceptibly, Diva began to heal. Not in grand gestures but in small moments, laughing at one of Ziza's terrible jokes, humming along to the kitchen radio, taking pride in a perfectly executed dish. The nightmares came less frequently. The guilt, while still present, no longer threatened to swallow her whole. She started to notice the regular customers, Mrs. Rodriguez, who ordered sweet and sour chicken every Tuesday, the college students who pooled their money for feast-sized portions of lo mein, the elderly couple who always shared a pot of tea and held hands across the table. You see them? Mr. Chin asked one evening, nodding toward the dining room. We don't just feed their stomachs. We feed their memories, their comfort, their connection. This is sacred work. Sacred work. The phrase resonated with Diva in ways she hadn't expected. She began to understand that healing wasn't about forgetting her family or moving past the loss. It was about finding new ways to honor their memory, to live a life they would be proud of. On the first anniversary of the accident, Diva cooked her mother's favorite meal, braised pork belly with bok choy, preparing it with all the techniques Mr. Chen had taught her. She set a place at the table for her family's spirits, lit candles, and shared the meal with Ziza while telling stories about her parents and brother. They would be so proud of you, Ziza said softly. Look how far you've come. Diva looked around the small apartment, at the life she was slowly building from ruins. I'm not the same person I was. No, Ziza agreed. You're stronger. You're a survivor. Part 4. A New Direction. It was a random Tuesday evening when everything changed. A customer collapsed in the dining room, an older man clutching his chest, his face contorted in pain. While others froze, Diva found herself moving on instinct, dropping to her knees beside him, checking for breathing, loosening his collar. Someone call 911, she shouted, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She stayed with him, holding his hand, speaking calmly until the ambulance arrived. The paramedics worked efficiently, and as they loaded him onto the stretcher, one of them, a woman with kind eyes, paused. You did great, she said to Diva. Stayed calm, provided comfort. Ever thought about healthcare? The question haunted Diva for days. Healthcare. Helping people. Being present in moments of crisis. Something about it called to her in a way nothing else had since the accident. She started researching. Nursing school. Prerequisites. Requirements. The path seemed impossibly long and complicated, but for the first time in over a year, Diva felt a spark of something that might have been hope. I want to go back to school, she told Ziza one evening. I want to become a nurse. Ziza's face lit up. Really? Diva, that's wonderful. It'll take years. I'll need to finish high school first, then prerequisites, then the nursing program. And money, I don't know how I'll afford it. We'll figure it out, Ziza said firmly. You've already survived the impossible. This is just logistics. Mr. Chin, when informed, simply nodded his approval. A healer, he said. Yes, this suits you. You will keep your shifts while you study. We work around your classes. And so began the next chapter. Diva enrolled in night classes to complete her high school diploma, studying at the restaurant between rushes, textbooks spread across the prep station. She was 19 now, older than most of her classmates, but she didn't care. Every completed assignment felt like a small victory over the tragedy that had nearly destroyed her. The work was grueling, 12-hour days between school and the restaurant, collapsing into bed exhausted every night. But Diva had learned something essential. She was stronger than she'd ever imagined. Grief had forged her into someone capable of enduring, of persisting, of reaching for something beyond mere survival. Part 5. The Hospital. 2 years later, Diva stood in the lobby of Mercy General Hospital, wearing volunteer scrubs and a nervous smile. She'd completed her high school diploma and was now taking prerequisite courses at community college while volunteering in the hospital to gain experience. The hospital was a revelation. The antiseptic smell, the constant motion, the way life and death existed in precarious balance. It felt right in a way nothing else ever had. She worked in the general ward, bringing patients water, helping them to the bathroom, reading to those who had no visitors. "You're a natural," said Margaret, the charge nurse. "Patients trust you. That's not something that can be taught." Diva thought of Mr. Chin, of the kitchen's lessons in attention and presence. She carried those teachings into every patient interaction, treating each person with the same care and respect she'd learned to give a perfectly steamed fish or a lovingly prepared soup. It was on a cold January evening, during her 3rd month of volunteering, that she met Joel. She was helping an elderly patient back to bed when she heard raised voices from the hallway, a doctor arguing with someone, frustration evident in every clipped word. "I don't care if it's hospital policy," the doctor was saying. "Mrs. Washington needs that medication tonight, not tomorrow morning. Find a way." Diva peeked around the corner. The doctor was young, early 30s perhaps, with dark, curly hair and intense eyes. He wore his authority lightly but wielded it effectively, and within minutes he'd convinced the administrator to expedite the medication delivery. As the administrator hurried away, the doctor slumped against the wall, suddenly looking exhausted. Diva found herself approaching with a cup of coffee from the nurse's station. "You look like you need this," she said softly. He looked up, surprised, then smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "You're an angel. I'm Dr. Joel Martinez, but please just Joel. Doctor, makes me feel like I should have my life together more than I do." "Diva," she replied, matching his smile. "I'm a volunteer. And I watched what you just did for Mrs. Washington. That was impressive." "That was me being stubborn," Joel corrected, accepting the coffee gratefully. "But thank you. Mrs. Washington reminds me of my grandmother, same fierce independence, same terrible jokes. I couldn't let bureaucracy get in the way of her care." They talked for 20 minutes in that hallway, the conversation flowing easily despite the hospital chaos around them. Joel was a resident in internal medicine, passionate about his work but struggling with the system's limitations. Diva shared her own journey, edited version, leaving out the darkest parts, about going back to school and pursuing nursing. "That's incredible," Joel said, with genuine admiration in his voice. "Going back takes real courage. Most people who face setbacks just give up." "Giving up wasn't an option," Diva said simply. "I had people who believed in me. That makes all the difference." Part 6. Connection. After that first meeting, Diva and Joel kept running into each other. Hospital shifts aligned coincidentally, or perhaps not so coincidentally, as Joel later admitted he'd checked the volunteer schedule. Their relationship developed slowly, carefully. Coffee breaks stretched into dinner conversations. Joel would quiz Diva on anatomy and physiology, impressed by her dedication to learning. Diva would listen to Joel's frustrations and dreams, offering perspective from her years of hard-won wisdom. "You're different from anyone I've ever met," Joel said one evening, 6 months into their friendship. They were sitting in the hospital cafeteria after a particularly difficult shift. "You've got this quiet strength. Like you've seen the worst life can offer and decided to keep going anyway." Diva stirred her tea, considering how much to share. They'd grown close, but she'd kept her past carefully guarded. The grief was hers. She didn't want pity or careful treatment. But looking at Joel, this kind, dedicated man who gave everything to his patients, she felt safe. "I lost my entire family in a car accident when I was 17, she said quietly. "Parents, little brother. I was the only survivor." Joel's face crumpled with empathy. He reached across the table, taking her hand. "Diva, I'm so sorry. I spent a long time just surviving," she continued. "Working in my cousin's restaurant, going through the motions. But eventually I realized that just surviving wasn't enough. I needed to live in a way that would make them proud. That's why I'm here. Why I want to be a nurse. I want to help people through their worst moments the way others helped me." "And you will," Joel said firmly. "You already do." Their relationship shifted after that conversation, deepening into something more profound than friendship. Joel understood her in ways others couldn't. He'd seen death too, held patients' hands as they took their last breaths, felt the weight of lives he couldn't save. They shared a darkness but chose, every day, to seek out light. When Joel finally asked her on a proper date, not the hospital cafeteria but an actual restaurant, Diva said yes without hesitation. "Fair warning," Joel said as they walked out together. "I'm probably going to talk about medical cases all night." "It's a problem." "Good," Diva replied, linking her arm through his. "I'm probably going to ask a million questions. I need to prepare for nursing school." Joel laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "We're going to be the most boring couple at the restaurant." "I'm okay with that," Diva said. And she was. Part 7, Building Together. The next 3 years unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Diva was accepted into nursing school, a moment of triumph celebrated by Ziza, Mr. Chin, and Joel with homemade dumplings and cheap champagne. The program was demanding, pushing her to her limits, but Diva had learned long ago that she was capable of more than she'd ever imagined. Joel finished his residency and accepted a position at Mercy General as an attending physician. He wanted to stay close, he said, close to the hospital where he'd found his purpose, close to the volunteer who'd brought him coffee and changed his life. Their relationship grew steadily, built on mutual respect and shared values. They studied together, Joel helping Diva prepare for exams while she helped him prepare for presentations. They cooked together, Diva teaching Joel the techniques she'd learned from Mr. Chen. They dreamed together, talking late into the night about the lives they wanted to build. "I want a family," Joel confessed one evening, lying together on Diva's apartment couch. "Kids, chaos, the whole messy beautiful thing. Is that something you want?" Diva's heart clenched, grief and hope warring within her. The family she'd lost could never be replaced. But a new family built with intention and love, honoring the past while embracing the future. "Yes," she said softly. "I want that. I want to create something beautiful. Something that would make my family proud." Joel pulled her closer. "They would be proud. I never met them, but I know they would be proud of who you've become." In her final year of nursing school, Joel proposed. Not a grand gesture but an intimate one, in the hospital chapel where they'd both spent countless hours seeking peace between difficult shifts. He got down on one knee, holding a simple ring, and asked Diva to build a life with him. She said yes through happy tears, feeling her mother's blessing, her father's approval, her brother's joy radiating from whatever place they now existed. Part 8, The Wedding. They married in a small ceremony, surrounded by the people who'd helped them become who they were. Ziza stood as maid of honor, dabbing at tears throughout the entire ceremony. Mr. Chin, now in his late 70s, attended with his characteristic stoic dignity, though Diva noticed his eyes suspiciously bright. "Your family is here," he whispered to Diva before the ceremony. "I feel them. They are proud." Joel's family, warm, loud, overwhelming in the best way, welcomed Diva completely. His mother, Maria, had already claimed Diva as a daughter, regularly calling with recipe requests and unsolicited life advice. His father, Roberto, a retired teacher, shared Diva's love of books and would spend hours discussing literature with her. The wedding was simple but meaningful. Diva wore her mother's pearl necklace, recovered from the accident, her only physical connection to her past. The ceremony included readings in multiple languages, honoring both Joel's Puerto Rican heritage and Diva's African roots. During the reception held in Golden Phoenix's dining room, Mr. Chin gave a rare speech. "I have known this young woman for 7 years, he said, his accented English careful and precise. "She came to me broken. I could not fix her, no one can fix another person. But I gave her a place to heal and she did the work. She is proof that from the greatest sorrow can come the greatest strength. Joel, you're a lucky man. Diva, you're a lucky woman. Together, you will be unstoppable." The room erupted in applause and Diva couldn't stop crying, happy tears this time, so different from the grief tears of years past. Part 9, New Beginnings. Diva graduated from nursing school and passed her boards on the first try. She accepted a position at Mercy General, working on the same floor where she'd once volunteered. The circle felt complete, from broken teenager to capable professional, from someone who needed healing to someone who could offer it. She and Joel bought a small house in a diverse, family-friendly neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs, a place to build memories, to plant roots, to create the life they'd both dreamed about. Our children will grow up knowing they're loved, Diva said, standing in the empty living room on moving day. They'll grow up safe and supported and encouraged to be whoever they want to be. They will, Joel agreed, wrapping his arms around her from behind. And they'll grow up knowing their mother is the strongest person I've ever met. Diva turned in his arms, looking up at him. We're going to do this right. We're going to be present and intentional. We're going to create something beautiful. We already have, Joel said, kissing her forehead. Look at everything you've built from nothing. This is just the next chapter. The next year brought their first child, a daughter they named Sophia, after Diva's mother. Holding her for the first time, Diva felt the past and future collide. This tiny being, so perfect and vulnerable, represented everything she'd fought for. The chance to create joy from sorrow, to build a legacy of love rather than loss. Joel proved to be a devoted father, changing diapers with the same careful competence he brought to patient care, singing off-key lullabies at 2 a.m., documenting every milestone with exhausted joy. Ziza, now married herself, remained a constant presence. The aunt who spoiled Sophia shamelessly, who helped during difficult nights, who reminded Diva that family wasn't just blood but chosen connections forged through shared experiences. Mr. Chin, growing frilier but no less sharp, held Sophia with tender reverence. New generation, he said softly. New hope. This is how we defeat tragedy, we create new life, new love, new possibilities. Part 10, Full Circle. 2 years after Sophia's birth, Diva and Joel welcomed twin boys, Marcus and David, named for Diva's father and brother. Their home transformed into beautiful chaos. Toys everywhere, noise constant, exhaustion permanent. But it was the exhaustion of abundance rather than grief, of too much love rather than too much loss. Diva balanced her nursing career with motherhood, working 3 12-hour shifts per week while Joel adjusted his schedule to complement hers. They traded off childcare, supported each other's careers, and built a partnership based on equality and mutual respect. This is what wealth looks like, Diva said one evening, surveying the scene, Joel building block towers with the twins while Sophia read stories to her stuffed animals. Not money, though they were comfortable enough. But wealth of connection, of purpose, of having created something meaningful from the ashes of tragedy. She thought often of her first family, wondered what her mother would think of her nursing career, whether her father would approve of Joel, how her brother would have loved being an uncle. The grief never fully disappeared, but it transformed into something different, a tender remembering rather than a sharp pain. On the 10th anniversary of the accident, Diva organized a memorial at the house. She cooked her mother's recipes, now perfectly executed after years of practice, while telling her children stories about the grandparents and uncle they'd never met. Your grandmother Sophia was the kindest person I ever knew, she told her daughter. She taught me that strength doesn't mean never falling apart, it means knowing how to put yourself back together. Your grandfather Marcus could fix anything, she told her sons. He believed that every problem had a solution if you were patient and creative enough. Your Uncle David loved to laugh, she told all 3 children. He found joy in everything. That's how I want you to live, finding wonder and happiness wherever you can. Joel held her that night as she cried, not the desperate tears of early grief, but the bittersweet tears of someone who'd learned to carry loss without being crushed by it. You've honored them, he whispered. Every day in everything you do, you honor them. Epilogue, Legacy. Years passed. Sophia grew into a curious, compassionate teenager, already talking about medical school. The twins became a whirlwind of energy and mischief, keeping their parents on constant alert. Diva advanced in her nursing career, eventually becoming a charge nurse, mentoring new graduates the way Margaret had once mentored her. Mr. Chin passed away peacefully at 87, leaving the restaurant to his daughter but leaving Diva his work, the one he'd used to teach her cooking, the one that had been her tool for healing. She hung it in her kitchen, a reminder that healing comes in unexpected forms, that sometimes the path forward requires patient guidance from those who've traveled similar roads. Ziza remained her anchor, the sister cousin who'd given her a place to land when she had nowhere else to go. They met weekly for coffee, sharing the joys and challenges of raising families, supporting each other through every triumph and setback. Joel's practice flourished, but he never lost his dedication to individual patients, never forgot why he'd become a doctor. He and Diva would occasionally work the same shift, exchanging knowing glances across the hospital corridor, two healers who'd found healing in each other. On quiet evenings, Diva would sit on their porch watching her children play in the yard, and feel profound gratitude. Not gratitude for the tragedy, she would never be grateful for that, but gratitude for her own resilience, for the people who'd supported her, for the life she'd built through sheer determination and hope. She transformed from a broken, grieving teenager into a strong, independent woman. She'd pursued education against overwhelming odds. She'd found love with a partner who truly saw her. She'd created a family built on intention, healing, and joy. The scars remained, they always would. But they'd become part of her story rather than the entirety of it. She was more than her trauma, more than the worst thing that had ever happened to her. She was a diva, survivor, healer, mother, wife, daughter, sister, nurse. She was proof that it's possible to rebuild after devastation, to find happiness after heartbreak, to create wealth not of money but of love, purpose, and connection. And every day, through her work at the hospital and her devotion to her family, she honored the memory of those she'd lost by living fully, loving deeply, and helping others find their own paths through darkness into light.